Inside Huntsville with Brenda Martin, a conversation with department heads at City Hall on streets, ball fields, public safety, and more. And also with our community partners that add economic security, support education, and enhance the city's quality of life.
Hello, I'm Brenda Martin with Inside Huntsville, and welcome to our show. As you know, the purpose of our show is to share with you, our citizens, information about Huntsville city government and how our many departments serve you on a daily basis. Today, my guest is Paige Colburn, who is a city planner and responsible for publishing the Transportation Quarterly for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. She's here today to share with us why these two areas are important to you. Paige, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We've been trying to get together for a long time, so I'm really happy that we're here. You're finally here today to tell us more about what you do. Paige, first of all, tell us what your responsibilities are as a planner. People want to know, what does a planner do?
Absolutely. I do two different types of planning. I do transportation planning for the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and then I also do big picture comprehensive planning for the city's big picture initiative. Mm-hmm. Big picture Huntsville.
We hear a lot about big picture,
yes.
Don't we?
Yes.
So when you talk about planning for the big picture, what do you mean by that?
The big picture is public outreach at this point and putting together all of the information that we've gained from the public into a comprehensive plan for the next 25 years for the city of Huntsville. Mm-hmm. Just sort of putting all of that information together in a place that's user-friendly for the public to see it and interact with it as we go forward.
Okay, because it is important to have our citizens, of course, involved in that process.
Yep.
Yes, and you do it well. So you are also editor of the Transportation Quarterly newsletter for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, often referred to as MPO.
Yep.
Okay, who is the MPO?
The MPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and metropolitan means a group of governments working together. So the MPO is, their member jurisdictions are the City of Huntsville, City of Madison, Town of Triana, Town of Owens Crossroads, and Madison County, or the Madison County Commission for all the unincorporated parts of Madison County. And the MPO is a planning organization, literally, that deals with federal government transportation dollars. Mm-hmm. So that entire half of my job is just transportation planning for the MPO.
So let's talk about all that are listed. In fact, you brought a quarterly. Can we take a look at it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
I've got a few others.
So you do this obviously on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
And exactly what are some of the things that you highlight in your quarterly?
The Metropolitan Planning Organization deals with many different types of transportation projects, and these transportation projects are bridges, bicycle lanes and bicycle infrastructure, intersections, additional lanes to roads, road maintenance, such as resurfacing projects, interstates. A lot of the federal transportation dollars are for federal highways, such as 565 and other ones. Then you've got public transit. So we have several transit programs in both Madison County, the City of Madison, and City of Huntsville. And then I also, in the quarterly, cover things I just call like rockets and research, which is everything to do with Research Park and Redstone Arsenal. So transportation projects that affect those major employment hubs specifically.
So tell us more about the areas that you cover, such as the bridges and the bicycle lanes, etc.
Exactly. Inside the Transportation Quarterly, there's 8 sections, and
Okay.
each one of those sections deals with a different type of project.
Uh-huh.
So every quarter we'll talk about a project that's a bridge project, for example, in the bridge section, or what's going on with additional bicycle infrastructure in the bike section, what's going on at Research Park and Redstone Arsenal, such as the movement of Gate 9 project that's happening right now, or the Martin Road transportation project that's happening right now. That would go in the rockets and research section. Anything happening with I-565, I-65, US 72, US 53, all of those would be in the interstate updates, and then basic maintenance projects, large-scale resurfacing projects or shoulder widening projects that falls under maintenance. Those would be in the maintenance section of the plan. And then on the back of the newsletter is the big picture back page, and that's where we talk about big picture ideas and how they overlap with MPO transportation ideas, because the transportation piece, there's a lot of overlap in what the big picture wants to do 25 years forward with what the MPO is doing right now. The first 3 pages of the newsletter have a lot to do with what the MPO is doing on the ground today, and then that back page is a look at the future through the big picture.
Well, now, Paige, how often does do the MPO members, if you will, meet?
It depends on the planning requirements. They don't have a set schedule of meetings. They just meet when plans have to be updated or changed, amendments have to be made to the various MPO documents, or if there's requirements from FHWA or ALDOT that they meet. Because the MPO is a federally mandated planning body, and it's basically in existence as a box checking organization to check the boxes that have to be checked for federal transportation dollars to be spent in local government jurisdictions. Now, a lot of the road projects that you see that local governments are doing, a lot of them, if they have federal funds involved, are as much as 80% federal dollars. So, of course, there's a lot of rules and regulations to use that much taxpayer money.
Such as? Talk a little bit about that.
The roads have to be in certain plans. So again, it's a planning organization. So they have to be, first for transparency, they have to be in the long range transportation plan, which is a 25-year planning document. And the current one is going all the way out to the year 2040. Mm-hmm. And then they have to be, if work is actually being done right now, they have to be in the Transportation Improvement Program, which is basically every 4 years the actual projects that money is being spent on. So you have the 25-year long-range transportation plan. A project must be in that document first, and then it would be transferred over to the Transportation Improvement Program, which is these are the projects we're actually spending federal dollars on in the next 4 years.
Well, Paige, also I see in the quarterly you talk about rockets and research. Talk a little bit about that, because that affects what? Redstone Arsenal.
Yes, that's the section of the quarterly where it's not so much any specific type of project, it's just any transportation project that will affect Redstone Arsenal or Research Park or both, because those are our major employment centers. So we talk about things that are affecting each of the gates. We talk about the Cummings Research Park Master Plan was featured in the Rockets and Research section of the newspaper last time. All sorts of different projects like that that will have any sort of effect on all of those employees going to those places.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about your maintenance, the maintenance of these properties.
The maintenance section of the newsletter talks about maintenance road projects, projects similar to resurfacing of highways and safety maintenance projects like adding guardrails or adding medians or shoulder widening. Those are all the types of projects that would be talked about in the maintenance section of the newsletter.
Okay. And in the intersection and additional lanes, that's important as well.
Yes, that's a very popular one. We'll talk about, like in the issue you're looking at, the Maston Lake overpass is right at that intersection there of Memorial Parkway and Maston Lake Road. And any sort of major intersection project like that, or any sort of road widening project, which is very different than just adding shoulders on the side of the roads for safety. A road widening project is when you're adding lanes, and making the road wider. So that's where those types of projects would go in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm. What about interstate updates?
Those are all of the projects having to do with interstates that are here, and we have a lot of them. We have 565 and I-65, but then you also have several U.S. highways like 431, 231, and 72. So any projects related to those major highways would be in the interstates updates section of the newsletter.
Okay, and those roads, if you will, are actually, they're not city roads.
Right.
Okay, they're what?
They're either federal roads like I-565 and 65, or they are state highways.
Okay. What about public transit?
That's
an interesting one, and one that oftentimes gets a lot of questions.
Yes, public transit is a very popular topic for the big picture going forward because you get a lot of public request for greater transit routes, longer routes, or routes that go to places they don't currently go.
Yes.
And for the greater frequency of transit, because some of the lines right now only stop at a stop every 30 minutes or once an hour, and people would like them maybe every 20 minutes, maybe every 15 minutes.
Right.
So there's a lot of requests for expanded transit, and transit representation is a requirement, a federal requirement on the MPO. The Metropolitan Planning Organization has to have a representative of transit as part of the planning organization. So we cover transit in the newsletter so that people know, what's going on with transit locally and in Madison County and in the city of Madison.
Well, now, do you think there will be any expansion in the area of our local transportation at all?
I think so, definitely as part of the big picture effort in the years ahead. But it'll be more of that long term rather than short term type
short
changes.
term,
Yep.
yeah. Do we have any idea how many people are really utilizing or using our local transportation?
Yes, the numbers have actually increased quite a lot lately. I think on that page you were just looking at, it showed some of the numbers down in the transit section where they did a zero cost increase in frequency of some of their lines, and that increased ridership exponentially over the last few years since they did that.
That's good. But of course, we're growing also in terms of population. It would be great to have that service back and forth to various places in the city. So hopefully that will happen. Well, your Transportation Quarterly, who can read it? Who would be interested in this? Who should read it, I guess I should say.
Yes, transportation affects everyone. Transportation and our transportation infrastructure, the way it's built, and the places where it's built, the places where it's expanded, the places where construction is happening, certainly is when people interact with transportation the most. I think they recognize construction is happening.
You're right.
Yes,
You're
and
right.
want to know more about it. So anyone who is interested in any of that kind of stuff, so it affects everyone. Transportation and transportation infrastructure affects everyone. And so, yeah, I'd love it if everyone read it.
Can you talk a little bit about the activity that's going on down in South Huntsville?
Mm-hmm. The Martin Road overpass is way ahead of schedule, actually, and there's been a lot of...
That's good news.
We
need to shout that from the rooftop to let people know,
Yes, it's way ahead of schedule.
That's great.
And there's been so much collaboration on that project between the local business owners and AlDOT. It's been really unique in that way as well.
How is that?
Getting business entrance signs along the construction route, and the coalescence of that group of businesses into their own business association, a South Huntsville Business Association, is huge. And all of that happened because of that Martin Road project. And you'll see the positive effects of that kind of collaboration well after all the bulldozers have pulled out.
Right. Well, that's great. And it seems like they are moving fast. I live in that area, so I have to pass it every day and night. But they do seem to be moving quite quickly.
Yep, and we covered that project on in the Rockets and Research section, actually, because it affected the gate there. Construction affecting Gate 1 is actually what we referred to it as, and did the whole map of the Martin Road project back in the winter edition, so this January.
Yes. Well, now, obviously, the Transportation Quarterly is produced, and you produce it on a quarterly basis. But what are your basic goals for doing such?
It's to increase public knowledge of all of these projects that the MPO is doing, and to do it in a user-friendly way, and to spread out that knowledge beyond just our website and social media outreach efforts to all these places where people who may not use the internet and social media to find out what government is up to do it in a user-friendly and visually appealing format.
Yes.
Where people can see it and pick it up and learn about these things, because that's what it's all about, really, is getting the public engaged in, like I said, transportation affects all of us. It affects everyone. So getting the public engaged in transportation planning, getting them knowing what's coming, where construction is coming and when and why and how much it's going to cost. That's really the purpose of the Transportation Quarterly, and we put it out in places where we think people who maybe are not using the internet to get this information would want to pick it up, such as senior centers and YMCAs and schools and university campuses and libraries all over the metropolitan planning area.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Where and where is it distributed? However, I'm sure there's other places that you'd like for it to be distributed. How might someone who might be interested in having these quarterlies at their location, how could that come about?
Just ask me.
Okay.
I would love
Planner
to.
Paige, huh?
Yes, I would love to distribute them far and wide. I'd love to have to print more of them. I actually haven't had a run of the Transportation Quarterly where I've had to print additional copies yet. So that would be fun if we had a lot of
That's going to
people.
be our goal. We're going to make sure that happens with this presentation for sure.
Wonderful.
Now, can it be read online?
You can.
Where?
There is on the back of each edition, actually, it's on the MPO website, which is huntsvillempo.org, and then you have a little /category and /TQR.
Okay.
And that's the blog. We do a monthly transportation blog.
Yeah, talk about the blog. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, it's obviously not called the Transportation Quarterly. It's called the Transportation Review online because it's monthly and not quarterly. And on the blog, we just cover anything that's going on that month. For example, we had the Cecil Ashburn meeting that was covered. We'll talk about the MPO meetings if they happen in a particular month. We'll talk about really any of these types of topics that might be covered in the newsletter, except it's much more timely. This is happening in a few weeks, and you guys should be interested and go. So that's some of the things that will be on the blog.
My producer and I had the opportunity and pleasure of attending the meeting about the mountain activity, and it was quite successful.
Yes.
I would say. What do you think?
There were a lot of people there, and that's what you want. Like I said, transportation affects everyone, and so you want as much of a cross-section of everyone to show up to these public meetings as possible, to share their opinions of, do you want this road built, and how do you want it built, and what sort of additional amenities do you want on that road? And these are your tax dollars at work. These are, like I said, sometimes as much as 80% federal dollars, sometimes it's 50%, but no matter what, if it's local money, it's your local tax dollars at work. So we want the public to show up to these things. We want the public to be engaged and to tell us what you think.
So how do we utilize the public information? People sometimes will ask, well, did they really listen?
You'll see changes made in plans. At the meeting that you went to, I believe it was the 30% plan or the 60% plan that they showed that night. And so it's not a finished plan.
It's not basically a finished plan. Okay.
When you go to those meetings, you're never looking at a finished plan usually. And so they're taking public comments from those meetings and making changes to the plan.
Good point.
And the schematics for the road. And they're making engineering edits based on all of those comments. So it really does make a difference.
So when you hear about these things, go out to the meeting, attend the meetings.
That's right.
Oh, good. So for additional questions and comments, how might the public contact you?
Right, and for distribution, if you want to
want
to be a place that I send a stack or bring a stack of the Transportation Quarterlies, you can contact me at paige.colburn@huntsvilleal.gov or 256-427-5188. And that's my office email address and phone number for any questions related to the newsletter or any questions about distributing the newsletter or me increasing that print that's what we're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do. That's our goal. Yeah.
Yes. Get more of them printed every time.
That's
we'll
great.
See if it happens.
That's great. Okay. Well, what else would you like to share with us about this wonderful newsletter?
I just hope that more people will read it and that we get more people interested in transportation, more people coming to our public meetings and just discussing the way transportation affects them. I mean, we hear a lot from the bicycle advocates and from pedestrian advocates and from ADA, people with disabilities and things like that about our roads. And we definitely hear from people who are being affected by construction, like yourself at Martin.
Yes.
But there's so many other segments of the population that are affected by transportation planning that we'd love to hear from.
I'm almost running out of time, but I do want to talk a little bit about bicycles. What
Okay.
can you tell me a little bit about that?
Bicycle infrastructure is required by the feds on any new construction in the MPO area, in the Metropolitan Planning area, and any new construction that uses federal dollars, that is. And it's also required on major additions to the infrastructure. So if you're widening a highly used road, we call them arterials or higher. If you're widening a highly used road, then you have to add bicycle infrastructure to it according to the feds, bike and ped infrastructure. So that's why you'll see new sidewalks going in when people are building new roads. So Winchester Road Bridge is a great example out in the county. They built very wide sidewalks on both sides of the bridge. And that's a federal requirement when you're using federal dollars. You have to add bike and pedestrian infrastructure and consider bike and pedestrian infrastructure. And that's discussed in the MPO documents, the Long Range Transportation Plan, and the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. We have a lot of bicyclists in this area, do we not?
We do.
Both city and county.
Yep, and they're a very vocal group, like I
Yes,
said.
they are.
Like I said, and there's a lot of push, not just from the local cyclists, but from the feds. If
Yes.
you're using federal dollars, that's the push, because bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure benefits everyone. It benefits public health.
Sure.
And just adding those extra 20 minutes, perhaps, to your day helps public health. It helps the environmental aspects of our transportation planning. There's a lot of environmental regulations that we have to keep to, and we have to adhere to air quality, environmental issues when it comes to building transportation infrastructure. There's so many things that, and not to mention the economic development piece, which
Sure.
is what Big Picture is all about. If you build it, they will come. It's the only true
That's
example
right.
I've ever seen of if you build it, they will come actually working is for example, the Atlanta Beltline.
Yes.
Atlanta did a rails to trails type program, and then also in some places just built greenways where there weren't rails beforehand, and just the growth, the economic growth around
It's
that.
been tremendous, huh?
Absolutely tremendous. There's places where it's 100% increase in property taxes
About that?
and property values. There's places where it's higher than that. Indianapolis is another great example. So we want more bike and ped infrastructure for the public health aspect, for the economic development aspect, and for the environmental aspect.
And our bicyclists have the right to be on the road. And that's one of the things we've got to make sure we share with it. Paige, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Planner Paige, as she's often referred to, from the Huntsville Planning Department, editor of the Transportation Quarterly. Thanks for joining me today, and thank you for joining me for another segment of Inside Huntsville. I'm your host, Brenda Martin. Have a great day.